The KHOU 11 studios, this is HTownRush.
It's an exciting day, everybody. First at 5, we're taking a live look at the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Right now, this afternoon's launch is still a go. 2 Houston-based astronauts are set to lift off in the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It will be the first launch from U.S. soil in nearly a decade. We'll have team coverage for you all morning, and we're also keeping a close eye on the weather in Florida to make sure it's still a go. For the latest information on the blast-off, you can text the word launch to the number on your screen, 713-526-1111. For now, good morning, everyone. Welcome to H-Town Rush. I'm Steph Simmons. We're going to start things off with Cheetah Craft, and we'll get to the Florida weather in just a minute. But first, what's going on here?
Yeah, you know what? We're starting off dry. Can you believe it? Wow, what a change. The past couple of days, we've been tracking overnight rain, and not the case today. We're starting off this morning in the 60s. Winds are nice and calm, and you know what? Temperatures are cooperating as well. Not a bad start here to your morning. Temperatures across the board in the 60s, 64 in Tomball, 60 degrees in Conroe. We will take it. 63 in Huntsville, 76, of course, on the island. Notice our pollen count. It hasn't been that bad either. Pollen is really cooperating, moderate levels with your ragweed and your grass pollen, so good news there. Now this afternoon, we do pop in about a 40% chance for a few afternoon showers to an isolated thunderstorm. I think that will mainly happen after about 5 o'clock this afternoon into our evening hours. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit. I'll send it back to you.
Cheetah, thank you. Demonstrators gathered in Minnesota yesterday to protest the death of a Houston man while in police custody in Minneapolis. George Floyd was from the 3rd Ward, and this morning we are hearing from his family. Michelle Choi has that story.
Steph, George Floyd's family tells us he was well known and beloved in the 3rd Ward community. Angry and outraged friends, families, and classmates said the video of his final moments is murder caught on camera. We do have to warn you, the video is tough to watch. Cell phone video shows a Minneapolis police officer pinning George Floyd down by kneeling on his neck.
First time that I heard him say, "I can't breathe," it was just more than I could take.
Officers were arresting Floyd for what police called a nonviolent forgery. His cousins here in Houston said they were devastated to see Floyd's calls for help go ignored. So are the public's pleas to help.
You gonna keep your thing on your neck?
It is unbelievable. Unbelievable to see someone suffer in the way that he did.
Floyd was working in Minneapolis, but Houston was his home. He graduated from Jackie Yates High School and played on the 1993 championship football team. Last night, Bishop James Dixon, speaking for some of Floyd's relatives, said the now viral video is fueling anger and heartbreak. He expects more protests.
Dead citizen, a son of Houston, Texas, and all Houstonians should be equally outraged.
The 4 Minneapolis police officers seen in that video have since been fired. Ben Crump, the family's attorney, says they should be charged with murder. Guys, back to you.
Michelle, thank you. Now we want to take you live to Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We are in the final countdown in today's historic launch. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will lift off and head to the International Space Station later this afternoon with 2 Houston-based astronauts on board. Now, this is the first time astronauts will blast off from U.S. soil since the Space Shuttle program ended back in 2011. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley have been training for this day for the past several years. Much of that time was spent in Houston at the Johnson Space Center. Today's launch is scheduled for exactly 3:33 p.m. Houston time, and that's of course if the weather cooperates.
Oh yeah, we've been keeping a close eye on the forecast in Florida for the past week, and we know rain could be a big problem today. But get this, there are other factors that can force delays.
Launching a rocket is a delicate dance, and there's a lot that can stop it. If sustained wind at the 162-foot level of the launch pad is more than 30 miles an hour, it's a no-go. Same thing if there's wind shear. That could cause control problems for the launch vehicle. If lightning strikes within 10 nautical miles of the pad or flight path, that's an automatic 30-minute delay. FYI, a nautical mile is 1.15 regular miles. Anyway, nearby clouds can delay the launch too, especially if they're tied to storms. It's Florida, so it'll be warm at the surface. But if NASA sees precipitation and freezing temperatures aloft, the launch will be scrapped. If the rocket is set to go through a cloud layer greater than 4,500 feet thick that extends into freezing temperatures, no go. Another issue, wildfires. If there's a smoke cloud from fires near the rocket, no launch.
So much to keep in mind. And then I'm going to also put one other thing. So one thing to know here, especially when we're talking about the Kennedy Space Center, as we trend closer to the weekend, we're actually expected to see even higher rain chances Saturday and Sunday. So if it's delayed today, the next time it's expected to happen is Saturday. And at this point, I don't know if that's going to be a go either. I'll send it back to you.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see, Cheetah, and of course we'll keep you posted on any new developments on air, online, and also on our mobile app. You can also text the word launch to the number that just popped up there on your screen, 713-526-1111, and we'll send you the latest information right to your phone. Now let's get you caught up on today's coronavirus headlines. Here's what we're watching for you this morning. A somber image on the front page of today's USA Today. Now this comes as we close in on 100,000 deaths here in the U.S. It's a milestone we could reach any day now. A bit of good news though, the death rate is slowing down and New York just recorded its lowest number of daily deaths in months. But the average number of cases is still rising in at least 27 states.
So this morning we're watching the case numbers closely to help you better understand where things stand as Texas reopens. We're in phase 2. Yesterday we saw 442 new cases in the Houston area. It's alarming at first sight when you look at this graph for the 19-county region. It looks like a major spike in cases, but keep in mind we're coming off a holiday weekend, meaning several counties didn't report numbers in some cases for a couple of days. For a better picture of the overall outlook, take a look at the 14-day moving average for the region. So this dotted line here, it's holding relatively steady despite the last few days of ups and downs. Brandy?
A summertime staple in Texas is about to reopen. Water parks are part of the next wave of reopenings under Governor Abbott's plan, along with mall food courts and driver education problems. Typhoon Texas promptly announced it's reopening on Friday with a new reservation system in place. And another favorite, Schlitterbahn, says it's working on reopening in the next couple of weeks. Six Flags hasn't announced a specific date for Texas, but it says it will open its Oklahoma theme park on June 5th. And when it does, it's rolling out some of the changes it's going to have at all of its parks. So here's what that looks like. Reservations are going to be required to manage the crowds. You're going to have to get your temperature checked to enter. There's a touchless security screening. Masks are going to be mandatory for both employees and for visitors. Social distancing will be enforced, and there will be increased sanitation as well. And finally, the Houston Zoo announced that it's going to welcome the public back on June 3rd. Just like so many of these other places, online reservations are going to be required. You're also going to have to go on a specific route through the zoo.
But we created this one-way path throughout the entire zoo to make sure that people can see a lot of their favorites, but also maintain a correct social distance.
The zoo is suspending all indoor activities as well as giraffe feedings and carousel rides. You can start booking those online reservations for the zoo at noon today. Xavier, I'm ready. I'm going to set my alarm.
Oh, Brady, I know that's welcoming news. I'm gonna miss the daily Facebook Lives though. Those are really cool. All right, now let's get a look at some of today's other big stories, starting with an 18-year-old accused of killing another teen that's back in the U.S. Authorities say Marco Ruiz fled the country months ago while out on bond. Last summer, Houston police say Ruiz shot and killed 16-year-old Juan Nunez at a Greens Point apartment complex. He was released, then arrested and released again in the fall. That time, authorities say he took off with his girlfriend. The FBI agents investigating last week's shooting at the Naval Air Station in Corpus Christi now believe the gunman acted alone. Investigators say 20-year-old Adam Al-Soli tried to ram his car through the gate, then shot and wounded a sailor who returned fire, killing the suspect. A woman has been fired after this viral video surfaced showing a confrontation with a man in New York City's Central Park.
Please take your phone off. Please don't come close to me. I'm taking pictures, calling the cops. Please call the cops.
This happened after the man reportedly asked her to put her dog on a leash. Police responded but did not make any arrests. Could the Republican National Convention come to Texas? President Trump threatened to pull it out of North Carolina if the state refuses to guarantee it'll be fully open to host in August. Vice President Pence says Texas is an option. And stocks soar on hopes the economy is in recovery. The Dow Jones surged about 25,000 points for the first time since March. It finished just below that milestone. And those are the big stories here on this Wednesday morning.